This is the 2014 KLR 650. This bike has about 6,000 miles on it. It has the SW Motec crash bars. It has, forget all the names of everything, but it's got, I put the skid plate on that will also mount with the crash bars. I also put on a Tusk shift lever that moves the shift lever out a bit farther from the foot peg so that with boots on, you're still able to shift and get your boot underneath it. One reason for that is the foot pegs that are on this motorcycle are a bit wider than the stock ones. I also put on the center stand, which I think is really important. It's SW Motec center stand. Actually, kind of an investment on that. They're kind of expensive. I think $175 or something like that. Compared to everything else, the skid plate was $105. Anyways, on and on and on. That was a pretty expensive part, but well worth it. You can change your tires and all of that kind of stuff with the bike and do maintenance while the bike's upright. The next upgrade, which is inside the case here, is what they call the doohickey. It's actually the cam chain tensioner mechanism. And on the 2014, it's been upgraded, so the upgrade is not as necessary as it is on the early versions. The actual mechanism itself is pretty solid, but the springs are too long. So after 6,000 miles, the spring was already loose. There's no more tensioning to be done. You have to pull this case off, and then you have to actually pull this inner case off. So there's quite a bit to take out. You have to take out the starter gears. It feels like you have half the motor apart, but it's still, with that said, it's a pretty simple operation. And I think a mandatory one to do on a KLR 650. If you have an earlier version, you likely have to take it out, and it's probably already broken. So more than likely should have been done originally. And at least Kawasaki has stepped up and fixed at least the tensioner piece. So if you want to just buy the spring, that's really for 2014, 2015, that's all you really have to do is buy the spring. I bought the whole thing and just installed the whole thing. It looked like I was replacing part for part because they look pretty much identical. But the spring is shorter and it will keep it under tension for a lot longer. Okay, that's an important piece. What else? So let's move around a little bit. I put the handguards on it. The handguards are bark busters. Thank gosh I had those on hand because I had replaced the ones off of my GS, and when I put them on my Tenere, I had to buy this new piece right here, and to buy that I had to buy this whole piece, which came with these, it's just a whole new set. Anyways, so I had the old set, this piece, and this piece. Well, okay, so anyways, pretty much the whole set I had brand new, so I got to put them on this bike. That's kind of a weird story. Anyways, the Lexx exhaust system, that just makes it sound a little bit better. These things kind of sound like a Briggs & Stratton. And with the Lexx exhaust, it sounds a little bit better. It's still quiet, but you'll be able to hear it sounds a little bit nicer. The crash bars really are protecting your radiators. So radiators are, at least on this side, you've got your radiator, and this side you've got your reservoir. And that crash guard is going to protect the radiator when it falls over, and it'll protect these side panels, which are expensive. Let's see. I know I've done some other things, but I think it's interesting to at least mention the fact that the 2014 new edition, they've upgraded the suspension, which was an original complaint of mine, is how soft it was. Still a pretty soft riding motorcycle, but the suspension upgrade is really nice. The seat, which is this gooey, cushy seat, is an upgrade on the new edition as well, and it's just narrower up front and wider in the back. It's still a gushy seat, so you probably get monkey butt from that. That's from just riding with a really soft seat. I put on these tank pads, and so there's one in the center and two on the outside. And really what that's to do, since you have such a smooth surface here, when you're riding off-road and you're standing up, you need something to grip with your knees. And putting this grip pad on allows you to have a place to put and grip with your knees while you're going down hills. It really does help with fatigue and all of that. The next thing I needed to do, because I'm a little bit taller, is I needed the bar risers. These are a 2-inch bar riser. It looks like it raises it about 3 inches, but it's a 2-inch bar riser from a Lexx. And it basically brings it up without having to bring it back further. So if you look at the mounting point is right here. If I were just to put an extension on it, it would actually move the bars to about, let's see, it would have been about here, which that would have moved the bars back, 4 or 5 inches, I think, in total, which wouldn't help me. I'd be sitting all the way back on the seat, and I would need to be sitting up a little bit further. The reason for the bar risers when you're standing, you have standing position riding when you're off-road. It's just a lot more comfortable not be hunched over the front of the bike. If you were to hit something, you actually might go over the bars if the bars are too low for you. And this really helps. It makes it a lot more comfortable. And just riding on-road, it makes it a lot nicer. There's one more addition I have for this bike that hasn't come in yet, but that's the windscreen. And the windscreens don't do a whole heck of a lot on this bike, but I did order the double bubble, which is by Zero Gravity, and it brings it up a little bit more. They also make a dash kit that brings the windshield up another 3 inches, and the front of the windshield down, so it keeps the front of the windshield down, top of it up, and which makes it a flatter surface. I'm a big fan of doing that. I actually made some of those myself, so if I want to put those on, they were really easy to make. I think it took me all of 30 minutes to put those together, and they're expensive. I think it's really expensive because they made this dash kit that comes up here and covers this area, whereas I just built the wedge mount, which is basically a piece of metal that turns this way, comes up 3 inches, the exact same, and it's bent in so you can mount the windshield to it, and it makes it at more of an angle. It looks exactly the same, so it's probably what they did, just sheet metal. Anyways, looks exactly the same, but I haven't put them on yet, so we'll see with the new windshield whether I want to do that or not. And I also put on this RAM mount. I can mount my phone in here. I haven't really done that much. I just put it in there to try it. And then I have this little mount here. This little mount is for the GPS. And on this bike, I'm planning at least on using my Rhino GPS that has also two-way radio capabilities and a sideband capabilities for longer range. Just in case I get in some trouble, I might be able to call out for help. I also have another mount that I can put on here for my locator beacon if I want to bring that along as well. Anyways, we should give it a start up, and we can hear it. I'm sure you can hear that. It's pretty quiet, so still quiet. We'll give it a little ride. I always do U-turns in these parking lots just to see how well they turn. And this is going to turn really sharp. It's kind of like a dirt bike, so you've got that really easy maneuverability as you would on a dirt bike. Making U-turns is super simple and as sharp as you really want to make them. It's a taller bike, and I think with the upgraded suspension, it actually makes it taller than it was before. Although with the upgraded seat, you tend to not notice. But it is a bit taller once you're sitting on it, just because the springs are firmer, so it doesn't compress as much when you sit down on it. Once we get out to the windy road, I'll turn us back on and we'll give it a bit more of a review.